Hey guys, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Ted from Brain Scratch Comms to discuss the fact that the Pokémon Company is trying to sell the rights to a live-action Pokémon movie. So let's get started. Well, Ted, we just heard about this very recently. Andre actually did an update overnight, and it looks like the Pokémon Company, as I just said, is trying to sell the rights for a live-action Pokémon movie. And it looks like according to the Hollywood Reporter, there are 3 different companies that are part of the bid war, and that's Legendary Entertainment, Warner Brothers, and apparently Sony. But it looks like Legendary is the one that could come out on top. So I'm just gut reaction. What is your opinion on a live-action Pokemon movie?
I have no idea, to be honest, because I've got no clue how the heck the Pokemon art style is going to mesh with a real-world tone. Like, here's the thing: video game movies, I should say by video game movies I mean video game live-action movies, don't necessarily have the best track record, and things have been getting a little bit better as time goes on, but when I hear the idea of a Pokemon live-action movie, I immediately start to get a little bit hesitant, because I have a feeling that either they're gonna try to take for some reason they're gonna go with the original designs for the Pokemon, and it won't work necessarily in live action. I mean, I'm not saying that it necessarily won't work if they keep Pikachu looking like Pikachu, but I have a feeling that it also might not work, so I'm not really sure on that front. And then the more scary idea is they try to make everything look realistic, which would just make me really, really upset. So, it's just kind of an odd thing to think about. I mean, it's not too surprising considering that Pokemon is arguably the most marketable video game franchise of all time. So, you know, when you think about it that way, it seems inevitable, but at the same time, I'm not sure how well Pokemon will work in a movie format as well. So, I don't know.
I pretty much have all the same reservations, honestly, because I don't think I've ever thought about the possibility of a live-action Pokemon ever. It just doesn't seem like something that would work. And as you said, it's because of the disconnect between the Pokemon designs and real people. Because we've seen people try to do realistic Pokemon before. They always, well, of course, try to make them more monstrous because of that. But Pokemon fans will rebel if you don't keep them looking like they're supposed to. And yeah, you can have maybe more of a realistic tinge to them, but they still have to look like the Pokemon, kind of like what Pokémon Tournament did.
Yeah.
And I think that's just going to look... It's going to look bad.
Yeah, like, I have seen some fantastic fan art of realistic Pokemon, but there's a difference between something that's a fan art and is supposed, and like, you know, a fan's interpretation of something, and something that's supposed to be more of an official interpretation for me. Now, granted, if this movie ends up being fantastic, you know, I'll eat everything I've said. But it's not just the aesthetics, because the movie could look horrible and still be a good movie. It's the structure of Pokemon stories, I don't think, lends itself very well to a traditional 2-hour, 3-act movie format. Now, I love Pokemon's world building. I actually think that Pokemon does world building better than tons of other video game franchises. You know, I could go on and on about that. But in terms of like the structure of a plot, I'm not really sure, because most Pokemon plots tend to be very simple. You know, 8 gyms, evil team, you beat them up, you become champion. Now, I'm not sure if for a movie like this they'd retell Gen 1 or if they'd tell a different story, but I think that if they did try to retell any of the Pokemon stories, I think that they'd have their work cut out for them to make that entertaining, given Hollywood's blockbuster formula works today.
The easiest thing that I can come up with is probably stick with Gen 1, because that's what people are used to. That's what most people are familiar with.
That's probably, yeah.
But also do an Undertale story. Underdog story, I should say, where I'm mixing up story and tales. An underdog story, because, you know, you got that guy who's just not that great at things, but he wants to become Pokemon champion, and he has to fight his way through the league, and he has to like go through maybe a few gyms in order to reach the league, and then he's finally faces off against his rival. The Pokemon structure works that way, and you can condense it down, and I think that's your best hope for a story, and maybe tie in Team Rocket in a way.
I feel like they'd need to tie in Team Rocket because they're the closest thing to a real antagonist Pokemon has. I mean, again, assuming that they do Gen 1, because I think if they were going to retell any of the Pokemon stories, that's the one that they'd go with. Just because it's the first one, and the original 150 Pokemon are the most iconic. But I feel like if they were to kind of smush things down that much, they'd be missing a lot of the experience of Pokemon, because like when people talk about their experiences playing the games, I don't think specific like gym leaders or dungeons are what people remember most, but more like how cool each of the individual Pokemon that ended up on their final team ended up being. Like, oh, this one time I was in this really tough spot with like only 3 HP, and my Butterfree, you know, got a really lucky sleep powder and then managed to win or something. I'm just making up
exactly
at this point. But, you know, it's those kind of attachment with the individual Pokemon, and especially if they want to have the focus be on multiple Pokemon. And I feel like if there was going to be any Pokemon trainer dynamic going on in the movie, they'd probably just stick with the starter, which would be really disappointing because there's tons of great Pokemon and not everybody just wants to see Charizard.
True, but they're also definitely going to be focusing on the most popular ones. Although, the thing is, they can actually pull a little bit from the Pokemon Adventures manga and that's how they tie in Team Rocket, and have Giovanni sort of being this corrupt leader behind the league and sort of making sure who people wins that he wants to win. That sort of thing. And there's all kinds of like tropes that you can pull from underdog stories and corrupt businessman stories and stuff like that, and just mold them into the Pokemon stories. But also, if the way it's going to succeed is, as you said, if they can build up the connection with whoever the main character's team is, that's going to be the key.
Yeah. It's not that it can't work. It's just, I think that this is probably a lot more difficult than they'd have to have a really ambitious director on this project, I think. I feel like in order to make it work, they'd either have to stay incredibly true to the source material, or they'd have to really branch out. And honestly, I feel like branching out might result in the better overall movie, but it would also result in people getting really upset that you didn't follow strictly to the Pokemon formula. So I feel like they're kind of in a little bit between a rock and a hard place. So
yeah,
it's certainly interesting, I think, especially considering that 3 huge companies are in the bidding for these rights. So out of the 3, which one do you think you would rather have them get?
You know, Sony is very weird with their licensed products, and we've seen the same thing with Warner. So actually, I think Legendary might be the best bet, but they're also the ones doing that Warcraft movie. And I'm not a fan of Warcraft at all, but I don't know, it seems faithful-ish, I guess.
I've never played anything Warcraft.
Exactly, but it doesn't pull you in that same way. Legendary also did the more recent Godzilla film, and they're actually closely associated with Guillermo del Toro. So there's a lot of talent at Legendary, and I think it probably is the best fit, I think, because Sony and Warner Brothers aren't exactly known for their faithful adaptations.
That's true. But there was also the thing you mentioned where Legendary that's the Chinese company, isn't it?
Yes. One of the other things mentioned by Hollywood Reporter is that Legendary is owned by China's Dalian Wanda Group. I'm probably not pronouncing that right at all, but anyway, because it's a Chinese company, Japanese movies were banned in China for the past 3 years and have only been approved for release recently. However, Legendary has a strong relationship with the Japanese industry because of that Godzilla film, and the Japanese studio Toho is the one that releases the Pokemon animated films in Japan. So there's a lot of intermingling here, but I don't think it's going to be that major of a difference, because I assume they're working with the American branch of Legendary more so than anything else, which might help assuage fears of that sort of thing.
The other thing is that China is a massive market for blockbuster movies right now. Like, they're, obviously they're one of the most populated countries in the world. So trying to cater movies to their needs is a good way to make money. So I'm not sure. Honestly, I'd be more worried about what they'd change to Pokemon to make it, quote unquote, fit an American audience than what they do to make it fit a Chinese audience. Although I don't know why they'd want to change it to make it fit an American audience. Pokemon obviously already works well with the West, but oh god. This is what's really frustrating about movies and video games, is that they're two completely different mediums. So, like, I'm not sure if they'd try to make it be like their own thing just in order to make it feel different, or if whoever they get to direct this would either kind of like do it begrudgingly because they feel like, oh, I have to make the Pokemon movie.
Well, I mean, at this age, I mean, there might be directors with nostalgia for Pokemon, so it's possible.
That's true.
And the other thing that's interesting with the Chinese audience thing is it might not be as big of a deal as Hollywood Reporter reports, because Pokemon, one of the big pieces of news that came out about Pokemon Sun and Moon was the fact that it had Chinese language options.
Oh yeah,
like right out of the bat, so it's going to be there for an international release. So Japan sort of recognized, the Pokemon Company realizes that China is a huge market. So I don't think that the fact that Legendary is connected with this Chinese group is going to be a major factor for them.
Oh no, basically all they're doing by opening it up to the Chinese market is just ensuring themselves a couple extra million tickets or games or whatever.
Exactly.
So yeah, I don't think that we can expect them to change anything for China specifically. I think it's just more of an interesting sign of how times are changing in that kind of sense, that these two countries which have a history of butting heads are becoming more open to each other, which is only a good thing in my book. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's funny because you can look at certain things and just realize, like, okay, it's not going to be a 10-year-old. It's probably going to be like a teenager.
Do you think they'll get an actual teenager, or do you think they'll get a 30-year-old teenager?
Depends what Disney star is most popular right now. It's that sort of thing. They're gonna hopefully skew a little bit younger, sort of like they're doing with the new Spider-Man actor, who is a teenager.
I would honestly, I know finding a child actor is miserable. I would really like them to try to go for the 10-year-old, personally, if they were going to do this. Because
if they make it, if they're going pure fantasy and going with a kids movie, yes, I completely agree.
The last thing I want is a dark and edgy Pokemon movie.
Oh god,
I am so sick of that trend. So if they're going to do this, I want them to keep all of the the lighthearted and fantastical elements that Pokemon has. I mean, granted, if you read Pokedex descriptions and things like that, Pokemon can get plenty dark. But I wanted to keep this, maybe not as goofy as the anime could get, but I wanted to have that sense of joy. I think that's integral, and I think keeping the main character young is important.
You need to have a sense of adventure with this. You don't need it dark and gritty. It should be like a child going on an adventure with his pets and making him like a boy and his dog type movie.
That's actually interesting. Do you think it would be just the main character and their Pokemon, or do you think that they'd have two characters? They'd have red and green or blue.
They would need first of all, the rival is going to be. It has to be there.
The rival's definitely there. But do you think that they'd have the male and female trainers traveling together?
Oh yeah, I guarantee they're going to have a companion in some form or other. I mean, if they're going based on the original and the fact that they're definitely going to be trying to pull from the anime as much as possible, is based off of nostalgia. It's going to be Misty.
Don't. I'd be okay if it being Misty, but I really would rather not have the main character be Ash.
I don't know if it's going to be Ash or not, but it's also you can't expect them. You also can't expect them to have Red as the main character's name.
Oh no, they'd probably give them well, I'd be really happy if they kept it as Red. Honestly, I don't think that they could make him a silent protagonist, but I'd really be happy if they did something like Pokemon Origins and have them just be named Red. Mm-hmm. It's just I don't want the main character to be Ash. Ash sucks. Dude, you're I can't remember if it's Gen 6 or Gen 5 anime, but Pikachu lost to the water starter. And I mean, dude, come on. So, yeah, no Ash. I'd also like them to focus on catching Pokemon a little bit more than we sometimes see in the anime. Because one of the things I love about the Pokemon Adventures manga is that Red, Gold, whoever is in the lead, generally catch a lot of Pokemon. I mean, they don't always use all of them, but you generally won't go too many chapters without, a new Pokemon being caught or whatever. Whereas in the anime, like, you'll have, this is the Ditto episode, and then they'll hang out with the Ditto, and then they leave.
Bye, Ditto.
And then you never see Ditto again, so.
Yeah, no, I think, even if it is Ash, I think they will make him more competent, because they're going to want to show off as many Pokemon as possible in this.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They're going to want to do that as much as possible. So you're not going to have every Team Rocket member with a Zubat and a Rattata. So, there's definitely going to be adaptation here. I think there's a lot of possibility with this, but it's going to be really tricky to pull off.
Yeah, I think, again, if they manage to make this look good, I would be ecstatic. But until we, at the very least, get, like, a director or casting, I'm going to be super cautious about this because, I love Pokemon, and the last thing I want is for the terrible live-action movie to happen, And I know we're far past the days of, like, a Super Mario Brothers movie and things like that, but it's still a very risky area, so, I'm... Yeah.
My whole idea for a Pokemon movie is to go as basic as possible for the first. Get people adjusted to the idea of this world in live action. And then for the second movie, if it does well enough, that's when you start bringing in the legendaries like Mewtwo and Ho-Oh, Lugia, and all that.
Oh, do you think... Oh, do you think that they wouldn't go for Mewtwo?
Would they wait on Mewtwo or not? That is
I think that they'd go for Mewtwo, honestly, because
either Giovanni would have it, or the trainer needs to catch Mewtwo in order to face Giovanni.
If I were writing this script personally, Giovanni's master plan would involve they would be making Mewtwo while the trainer was going on their adventure. Obviously in the game, Mewtwo broke out of the Cinnabar Mansion months before the game starts, but whatever. I'd have them building Mewtwo as the movie goes on, and then right before the climax or right after, he faces Giovanni and he's now you will face my strongest Pokemon, Mewtwo. And then he'd go out Mewtwo would be all badass, but then he'd rebel and escape, and then you'd have to go and stop him. I think, that's how I'd probably do it. Because I think that Mewtwo would be the ultimate climax for the movie.
Yeah, I think Giovanni owning a Mewtwo would be the best way to end it. Maybe not even have the character become champion at the end, but just facing off against Giovanni and maybe becoming a part of the league or whatever, or something like that. There's actually some really exciting things they could do for the adaptation.
Oh, yeah, I think... The problem is that since Pokemon is so sprawling, I don't know if they could fit this into a 2-hour movie.
The thing is, I wouldn't even expect a 2-hour movie. I'd expect a 90-minute movie, which would make it even trickier.
Yeah, that's honestly, if I were to put everything that I would want in the movie, it would probably end up being 2.5 hours. And that would probably involve a 10-minute montage of all of the gym leaders from Lieutenant Surge up to Koga probably would all be up through even if you made the movie way too long for the target audience, you would have to squish down or cut out so much.
I mean, look at Pokemon Origins. I love that special, but it feels rushed.
Yeah, it's 4 episodes?
Yeah.
And they skim past so much, so... I mean, granted, the original Pokemon anime is probably about 60 episodes too long, but...
Yeah, exactly. There's a nice middle ground you can find here, but it's still too long for a movie.
Yeah, I hate that Hollywood does this for every single blockbuster. But I think in order to get the movie that I would want the most, it would have to be cut in half. And I hate that everything does that now. I hate that Twilight and Harry Potter and Avengers and Justice League and everything else is split in half.
Well, it wouldn't even have. The thing is, you have to make it feel like it's not split in half. So have the first movie focus on maybe the gym leaders and Giovanni, and the second movie just focus on the league and really focus on the rival. Maybe work together with the rival in the first movie. Second movie, you actually are butting heads.
Actually, that might not be a bad idea, but it would have to kind of go against the way that the games work.
Oh, yeah. The thing is that everything
like,
about this has to go against the way the games work.
Yeah, like maybe the first movie is like maybe like 1 or 2 gym leaders and then all Team Rocket, and then the second movie is more about the rivals, their rivalry and the rest of the gym leaders in the league. I don't think that they could make the entire Elite Four, or well, I guess it depends on whether they do the way it is in the game where it's like 4 matches and then the champion, or if they did it the way it was in the anime where the Elite Four is, where the Pokemon League is more like a tournament.
I see the tournament angle working better. And
probably, yeah. Like maybe like after each branch of the tournament, you have to fight one of the league members or something.
Maybe the league members are part of the tournament, you know, and you can just be unfortunate enough to face off against them.
Maybe you'd have to beat one of the Elite Four members in order to get into the tournament. Like you could have like, I don't know,
Bruno.
Yeah, poor Bruno. Man, I pity whoever they have to get to write.
Yeah, the script writers are going to have a hell of a time, that's for sure.
Oh man.
Oh man, it's awful. But as far as anything else, is there any other thoughts on this potential live-action Pokemon movie?
I'm just wondering, because again, we always assume that they're just going to stick with Gen 1 for all of this stuff, like for Pokemon Go and for this Pokemon movie. I'm just wondering how much they try to cater to later Pokemon games, I think. Like, do they have Gen 2 through 6 Pokemon be cameos or whatnot? And yeah, I'm not sure, because by the time this movie comes out, because if they're only just working with rights right now, I wouldn't expect the full movie to come out for another 3 or 4 years at the earliest.
Oh god, yeah.
So would they try to, if that's the case and we're already at a Gen 8 by that point, which is not impossible, do you think that they'd try to put Gen 8 Pokemon in it? I'm not sure. It's just...
See, that's what the anime branch is for, to try to sell the new Pokemon, so...
Yeah, that's true. I guess my biggest curiosity would be how they would integrate later Pokemon into the story, I guess. Because I cannot see them building something to start off with. Like, I can't see them starting with, say, Gen 5, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening, so...
Yeah. It would be interesting to see what kind of... how they would do the structure, because there's elements I can see really working, there's elements I can see really not working, and
yeah,
that's where it becomes, I guess, intriguing.
Yeah, that's probably the best word to describe it. It's very intriguing.
But, well, I think that about covers everything for our Pokemon movie discussion. So thank you guys for watching. And if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Ted, where can they find you at? I'm a member of Brain Scratch Comms. We do a number of video game commentaries on all sorts of different games, including Pokemon. So if you're interested, go and check us out, because we're pretty awesome. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Pokemon and other things gaming too. Until next time, guys. Bye.